David here with Figboot on Pens. Today I have for you a very popular, inexpensive pen from Wing Sung, and that is the Wing Sung 698. What I'm going to do is go over the parts and features of the Wing Sung 698. I'll talk about what I care for and what I don't care for. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. And stay tuned, because later on I will let you know how you can win this very pen, as well as some other goodies, compliments of Van Ness Pens, who provided these items for review as well as giveaway. On a side note to begin with here, I will be at the DC show coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's a show that I always look forward to. If you see me, by all means, stop and say hi. I think this is going to be an interesting show, because on one hand, it's great to see everybody, and on the other hand, I think a lot of folks are still getting over the passing of Jim Rouse, and so I think his presence is going to be felt there. I will also be bringing a number of pens to sell as well. So I'm not going to have a table or anything, but if you see me hanging around the bar or something like that, I might just have a few pens that I'd be willing to let go of. So stop and say hi, and maybe you could see what I have. Wing Sung is a Chinese brand, and speaking of China, I'll be posting the second half of my travel vlog of my trip to China in a few days. Actually, I'm going to be posting it a few days early for Patreon supporters. If you'd care to support this channel, I greatly appreciate it, and you can follow the link in the notes below. The pen arrives in this plastic packaging. The cap goes on the one slot, and then the pen goes in the other one. So let's actually get this out of here. It's in there kind of tight. There we go. Something else that's included right here, it looks like a converter, but it is actually some silicone grease that you could use to service the pen. Let me get this out of here. There. That it's some silicone grease, but it actually kind of looks like a converter. But you could actually, it has a little piston in here, and you can push it down once you pierce this in order to grease the pen, and we'll get to that in a little bit. This is the Wing Sung 698. This has definitely been inspired by the TWSBI Diamond 580. Here is a Diamond 580. Now, this particular Wing Sung has an off-white cap, but this is another Wing Sung 698 that I had that is all clear, and on the all clear one, you could really see the resemblance to that. Now, I do feel that this pen, the Wing Sung, is a good example of one that was really inspired by another pen without being something that I would consider to be a ripoff or a knockoff. At first glance, they do look rather similar, but when you look closer, just about every single aspect of the pen is slightly different than on the TWSBI. So let's take a look on the Wing Sung 698. We'll start by taking a look at the finial, where this one has an interesting pattern. It's not engraved, but kind of created when they stamped the metal. This then transitions into the clip, which is a rather standard looking clip, and it's stamped with the word Lucky. Lucky is another Chinese pen brand that I believe has a relationship with Wing Sung. Well, obviously they have a relationship if they're manufacturing parts to use on this pen, but I believe that they're related somehow. The clip works just fine, and it's serviceable in both thinner and thicker materials. The cap angles up just slightly. There's about 1 millimeter difference from beginning to end. The cap band is raised on one end, and then the band is laser engraved with Wing S on one side and 698 and some Chinese characters on the other. The end of the cap here is raised to meet the level of the band, and then we have a little bit of a step down here to the barrel. The barrel is round and smooth and angles down about 1.5 millimeters from beginning to end here, where we have a metal band that serves as a transition to the piston mechanism. This is a piston filling pen. And then the end of the piston knob is adorned with 2 arrows, which is a little confusing, and I'll get to why here in just a little bit. The cap twists off, and here we have a steel nib. We'll call it a number 4 nib. On it is stamped Wing S Super Quality and then F for this fine nib. And here's a look at the plastic feet. Now, I've noticed a few changes between this newer 698 and the one I purchased, the clear one that I bought about a year ago. The piston knob is a little different, and in my clear version, it also has a clear plastic feed, which I think is very cool. I wish more companies offered clear feeds. We'll see in the writing sample, but for an inexpensive pen, this nib is decent. It has a fair amount of feedback, which I wouldn't describe as super smooth, but it does lay down a very nice fine line. While I typically prefer mediums, I do need to use something like a fine or extra fine if I want to use a fountain pen to do something like address an envelope or fill out a form. For the last batch of letters I sent out, I used this very pen to address the envelopes, and it worked really well on the lower quality envelope paper. The section is slightly flared at the end, and it slowly angles up to the threads, which I don't find to be sharp at all. The pen is comfortable in the hand, and I don't have any issue maintaining a grip, even though it is a little bit narrow at the end of the section. This particular cap would not post for me. It sits on there deep enough to where you think it should post, but it just doesn't. It falls right off. Now, on my total clear version, it will post just fine. So I'm not sure if this was a design change over the past year or just an issue with this specific pen. I do like that the section is clear. I like seeing the ink around the feed, and it kind of adds some color to the section, which you can change by using different colored inks. As I mentioned earlier, this is a piston filler. Now, the instructions really aren't clear about this, but the piston knob has a locking mechanism. So if you just twist it, you're going to run into some issues. So what you do is, first you actually have to pull the piston knob out to disengage the locking mechanism, and then you can operate it as you normally would. That's why the arrows on the knob are a bit confusing. If they wanted to let you know you needed to twist the knob, the arrows should be curved. And I don't really look at this end and get the message that I'm supposed to pull. I kind of think it's telling me I need to move it side to side, which is impossible. Now, the piston does operate well. I mentioned at the top, but they do include the silicone grease, so you can disassemble the pen and grease it back up if you feel it needs maintenance down the line. Now, this pen retails for $24 on the Van Ness site. Now, I've seen these on Amazon for $1 or $2 cheaper, but in my opinion, the minute difference in price for that price, I would much rather purchase the pen from an established retailer where you know if there's anything wrong, they'll take care of you, which the Van Ness team will definitely will. I find the Wing Sung 698 to be a decent offering in the under $25 realm. It has decent looks. It doesn't necessarily look like an inexpensive pen. It's a piston filler with a very large ink capacity, and for an inexpensive pen, it's fairly sturdy. It doesn't give me the feeling like this thing's going to fall apart at any time. I don't find it to be flimsy. Now, beside the pen, Van Ness provided a couple of other things. First of all, they provided me with a bottle of Krishna ink. This particular color is called Vicari, which is a brown with a bit of a green sheen to it. And because you know now if you have a pen and some ink, you'll also need something to write on. So they included this Paper Blanks notebook as well. We'll take a closer look at the notebook and the inks during the writing sample. But through Van Ness, the Krishna ink is $8, and the notebook goes for around $17. So, thanks again go out to Van Ness Pens for providing the pen and the notebook and the ink for the giveaway. This will make a nice little package for somebody. To enter to win these items, all you need to do is leave a comment here on YouTube. Today is Saturday, July 21st, 2018, and you have until end of day on Tuesday the 24th to enter. In regard to a topic, Wing Sung 698 can be categorized as an inexpensive Chinese-made pen. Why don't you let me know what some of your favorite Chinese-made pens are, inexpensive or otherwise. The topic is just a suggestion and is not a requirement. So, now it's time for some measurements, size comparisons, a writing sample, and then we'll take a closer look at the notebook and ink. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Wingsung 698. Here it is next to the clear Wingsung 698 that I already owned, and then here it is with the TWSBI Diamond 580, and then here it is with a Moonman M2. Then in regard to some significantly larger pens, here it is with a Pilot Custom Urushi. Then here it is with a Wall Eversharp Deco Band. And then here it is with an ASC Bologna Extra Arco. Now, let's actually take a look at this notebook that I have. And for that, let's zoom out just a little bit. Here's the Paper Blanks notebook. This one is called Venetian Mornings. This is a rather convenient size. It is 5 by 7. It does have 144 pages of lined paper. The cream paper actually, I think, matches the cover very well. It does have a textured cover, and there's really no bleed through or ghosting at all in this paper. There is in the back there is a nice elastic band as well as a pouch back here, and I kind of like that the elastic band is coming out of the back cover so that when you are using it, that it's out of the way and it operates nicely. And then when you are not using it, then it is out of the way as well. So it's very nice. I will say that this paper did have a bit of drying time to it. I was using one of my wettest pens I own, which is this Omos Ogiva Cocktail Blue Angel. And you could see here that I didn't realize how long it was drying, and I was trying to make this all pristine, and then I muffed it up there. And then you could see I touched a few things before I realized that I had muffed it up. But in regard to the drying time, that when I was using the Krishna ink that we'll take a look at here in a second with a fine nib, then it wasn't that bad. But when I was using the medium nib, when it was the Omos, then it was well over a minute and it still wasn't dried yet. And then this down here was with another somewhat drier ink with this Wingsung 698, a fine nib, which was the Birmingham Inks Fred Rogers Cardigan Red. Now, in regard to this ink, this is the Krishna Vaikari, and this is what a bit of that looks like. There is a bit of green sheen here at the top on this nice brown ink. These are the bottles. They're a bit on the smaller side, but so far the Krishna inks that I've tried, I've enjoyed. And this is just what the swab of that looks like. You can see I had done a swab previously and actually laid it on a little bit heavier, and you can see a bit of the green sheen that is on here, a little bit better than the lighter one. But in regard to some other inks, this is what it looks like with a Faber-Castell Hazelnut Brown or a Seitz Kreuznach Chestnut Brown. Or even like a Mont Blanc Toffee Brown. They're all kind of in the general same neighborhood. So, in regard to a writing sample, I thought that we'd just go ahead and do it here in the notebook. So, here we have the Wingsung 698. And this is a fine steel nib, and the ink is Krishna Vaikari. And then here we'll do the writing sample. I think it's writing a little bit louder just because it's on the first page and it doesn't have some of the other paper underneath it. That's more of the paper, not the nib writing so loud. That this is a fine steel nib, and so you're not going to get tons of line variation out of here. You can get a little bit if you push it, but that's really not the purpose of a fine nib. In regard to wetness, it's not a super wet nib, but it does lay down a bit of ink. I think this paper being not as absorbent helps a little bit there. In regard to reverse writing, it does catch a little bit, but it does get the job done. And then in regard to some fast writing, I haven't had any problems with this feed keeping up at all. So, thanks again go out to Van Ness Pens for providing this Wingsung 698 and the notebook, as well as the Krishna ink to give away. So don't forget to leave your comment on YouTube, and that I'll select a winner who will receive all 3 of these things. So, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.